everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to last week's episode of The Human Challenge featuring Bayan Khatib, the co-founder of the Syrian Canadian Foundation. Wow, what an amazing episode. I love it so much. I'm so proud of it. And when I spoke to Bayan about it, she was also really proud of it. It's just so special when you're able to create something super beautiful that both the host and the guest are really proud of. I think what makes it even better is the fact that if you had tuned in to our conversation, into our discussion, you would have heard how casual it was, how conversational it was, and which is really great because when you have episodes like this that are very deep and there's a lot of trauma in there, sometimes having that discussion in a very conversational way can make it really safe.
It was the first time that a Syrian president has been invited to participate at the United Nations General Assembly in decades and decades, because previously Syria has been ruled by a brutal dictatorship for years. Last year in December was Syria liberated from this dictatorship. And now we have this new president of Syria. He was invited to the UN, and a whole bunch of us activists from around North America were invited to come and meet with him.
I know you're from Syria. What did that mean to you? I guess being in that moment, that must have been so surreal. However, when I was in post-production, when I was editing, and I was like, I'm grateful that we got what we got from that, but I felt at the same time that way, that dialogue, that style, in a way kind of did a disservice to the story because it is so powerful and it is so impactful. And so when I was replaying everything and watching the footage, I was like, I think there's a better way to tell this story. I think also there needs to be a little bit more context right from the get-go about the Syrian revolution. So when I put in those four inserts in the beginning, the whole episode really took shape from there. I'm so proud of it, honestly. It's a really, really great discussion. If you have not had a chance to see it, you can check it out on my YouTube channel, and I highly, highly recommend you go there. It was a really, really, really beautiful story. One other thing I loved about Van, her demeanor, right? The way she showed up, like very clearly someone who's gone through a lot, very clearly a strong person, but yet so much humility. And I think that just made the episode so much better.
I was born in Aleppo, Syria. I left when I was 7 years old. My dad actually escaped from a Syrian prison when I was a baby. The Syrian revolution was headed by some of the most courageous, incredible people, but the response was really brutal. Like half the population was displaced or refugee. The Liberal government at the time made a commitment to bring 25,000 Syrian refugees to Canada. And so we formed the Syrian Canadian Foundation. I was hired as the executive director of the organization, and for like 3 or 4 years, that's what I did, building it from the start to an organization that had several different programs. And then I handed it over to somebody else who carried the rest of the way.
I absolutely love it. I'm so proud of the episode, and I'm really, really grateful that she was comfortable sharing her story. The other thing I really loved about the episode is the dialogue that came out after. I got a lot of DMs from people, or even just being in group threads, right? People talking about it. And I love it because not everybody actually agreed with this perspective, and that's cool. But I love, for the first time in a long time, I was actually seeing healthy, constructive dialogue, right? I actually had someone say, I totally appreciate this perspective is different from mine, but I also appreciate that everyone has the right to tell their story. I really, really miss healthy, normal dialogue. The fact that we are allowed to all have different perspectives and different conversations and different opinions on things. But I feel like just with the advent of the internet, there's just so much hatred, right? There's one thing to say I have a different opinion versus spewing hatred at people. And so I feel really grateful that I'm in the right spaces, that I'm in the right communities, that people can have healthy, constructive conversations. I had someone else say, I'm a Westerner, and for me, it's really insightful to hear these stories. And that resonates with me as well as someone who's a Westerner. I love to hear these stories, and I don't think I'm ever in a position to tell anybody how to tell a story or what your story is, because it's not mine. I find as a storyteller, whether it's podcasting, whether it's stories, whether it's film, et cetera, that sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge, that I can have different perspectives from people, but I still have to hold space with the fact that at the end of the day, everyone has the right to their stories, regardless of how it aligns with my opinions or not. And that's something that I've had to check myself when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to even being in editing. One question that I tend to ask myself when I'm in editing is, what does this person want me to know? What is this guest trying to tell me? That way I remove myself from the equation completely. What does this person want me to know? And am I honoring that? Am I respecting that? And so that's something that I really take with me, especially given that I do have a very empathic style when it comes to interviewing people. I'm not going to force people to tell their story. There's obviously a lot of things that you don't see on the other side. We do cut out a lot of questions. You'd be surprised in many of my interviews how slow they are, and the pauses I take in between. You won't see that on camera because that makes for a not very great viewing experience for you. But when we're on the other side and when we are actually having the conversation, you'd be surprised how slow they are, how conversational it is, and then how we can change things and how we can add a little bit more drama or suspense on the other side to it. Those are some of the things that I have to check when I'm also participating in telling this story. Is, okay, can I be empathic? Can I create the sense of safety? But then when I'm in the editing and post-production, again, what does this person want me to know? What are they trying to tell me? So that I can remove myself from the equation and make sure I am telling the right stories. So people would be surprised. It can be hard. It's very hard. We're all humans. We all have our own biases. We all sometimes have our own ways of viewing other people. How do we make sure that that does not get in the way? And that's something, as a storyteller, I really, really, really take to heart. I know how I felt going through much of my life, feeling like I was always just a character in someone else's stories, feeling like nobody ever saw me for who I was, only for the role that I played in other people's lives. And that's something that really, really, really hurt me. And maybe that had nothing to do with storytelling, but I do know I do not want to create that for other people, especially the guests that come on my show, especially those that come on and talk about these fairly traumatic experiences. That's the last thing that I want to create for people. And so that's really, really the intention that I am grounded in. I'm also really grounded in creating healthy dialogue, like I mentioned before. I do appreciate that at the end of the day, and I do think, when we talk about things like genocide, no, genocide is wrong. I'm not going to sit here and stick up for someone else's opinion that genocide is right. But at the end of the day, I have to understand that people have the right to their stories. And if you're telling me genocide is right, then there are things in your life or your lived experience that you have probably not healed from, or that have been tainted, that have tainted your perspectives on life. And that's what I have to honor. I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you of anything, because that's not my job. It's not my job to educate people who don't want to be educated. It's not my job to do any of that. It's my job to tell stories at the end of the day. But that's really the intention that I work in with. And if you want to sit here and tell me things like genocide is right, that's your business. And that's got nothing to do with me. But those are the people I don't want commenting on my things. Those are the people I don't want to have discussions with, because it means that there's something tainted. It means that we're not actually going to have a conversation. It means you're going to spew hatred at me. And I'm not here for that. I'm absolutely not here for that. So I'm really grateful to be in the right spaces where people can view a lot of my content and talk about it in ways that are healthy. And I will take that over likes and shares and all the other things, because I'm really over it. I'm so over. That is not storytelling. That is absolutely not storytelling at all. And I'm not here to value myself or my content based off of that. I do think in general that storytelling is very, very powerful and actually can help us build a cohesive society. If you were to take a look at the work that we're shifting into through my foundation, the Being Human Foundation, start to see this, how we are using storytelling to encourage the building of a more cohesive society. I'll share a little bit more on that probably at a later date, but maybe I'll just sort of hint at it. As I mentioned, as I promised, short episode today, I just wanted to tune in, talk a little bit about the behind the scenes of that episode with Bayan. I hope you check it out if you haven't. And I hope to see you in the next episode. We have a really, really, really another documentary style type episode coming up next. I will surprise that with you, hopefully next week.